Can Bungie please quit dropping the ball for like one goddamn month so I don't have to keep making these videos? I mean, I know I don't have to make these videos, but rent is due, you know? You guys tell me that every video. But no, I don't make these videos for the $50 or so of ad revenue. I make these videos because it feels good being right. It's vindicating knowing that what I was feeling in the game when I used to love it was because the makers of Destiny 2 no longer have a fucking clue what they're doing. And so in this video, we're going to talk about it. About how they have steered Destiny 2 into being a soulless game with no regard for the type of game that it used to be. I'm scripting this video because there is a lot to be said and I don't want to miss a single talking point. So to talk about what has become of Destiny 2, we must first take a trip down memory lane to how Destiny used to be. It was a looter shooter with MMO elements. The Forever 29 meme became a meme in Destiny 1 because players would get unlucky RNG and need just a single drop of raid loot in a certain slot to complete their journey to level 30. But this wasn't just a number back then. No, level 30 was an achievement. You braved the hardest content in the game, which was the Vault of Glass raid, to earn the best gear. And this gear could drop at the highest light level. And as your light went up, you felt tangibly stronger, which allowed you to complete the hardest content much easier. You did more damage, and enemies did less damage to you. And so you could then farm the hardest content in the game, but more efficiently because you were meaningfully stronger. Fast forward to D2, you could do this exact same thing in Forsaken. The power level number was similar to Edge of Fate. You had a soft cap of like 500 where every drop prior to that number would be pretty much an upgrade. As you went through the campaign, certain missions had higher light levels, so you could either brute force it if you were below level, or you could take a break and go explore the open world or play some PvP to get better drops. Everything in the game was a source for higher light level, and then you could come back to that mission, over leveled, and beat it easier. The Last Wish raid had a super high light level requirement, which was a huge issue for the Day 1 raid, but as you completed pinnacle challenges on the Dreaming City and earned prime engrams by playing the game, you would slowly get more powerful, to the point where the raid would become easier. Once you hit like 585 power, if everyone else had that light level, you could actually cheese Riven with cluster bomb rockets, which was the final boss of the Last Wish raid. The point of all this is to establish that light level used to mean something, but as time went on, with Destiny 2 being a live service game, the identity of the game shifted. Eventually, light level or power level just became an arbitrary number, and that's fine. They're allowed to change directions with their game. I honestly thought for a while that with all the power deltas they had implemented in the game, that for Edge of Fate, with it being such a drastic overhaul to the game, that they might abolish the relic of the past once and for all. But did Bungie do that? No. Instead, they doubled down. They made light level matter as much as ever. Instead of just going with the power delta system, which they have spent years implementing into the game, they made it so that light level now governs the tier of your gear drops. So what does this mean? Well, instead of getting the best loot in the game from the hardest content, you now get the best loot in the game from sinking an ungodly amount of time into boring and repetitive missions, only to be rewarded with the best loot from any activity once you reach that number. Play a normal game of quick play and you're 450 light, then the game will just rain tier 5 loot on you. Go to the lighthouse with your friends in Trials of Osiris, but you're lower light than them? Too damn bad. The highlight players get tier 5s, but you, no matter how well you performed, will only get the tier of rewards that are determined by your arbitrary number. So why is this a bad thing? Because all light level is there to do is to artificially increase your playtime. If you want the best rewards, you must jump through the hoops that Bungie put in place first. Last week, I made a video about the community's reaction to an awful change that Bungie proposed to the leveling system. By far, the most efficient way to level is in solo ops. So people who want the best stuff flock to this playlist so that they can reach the highest light level in the fastest way possible. Once they're done with the slog of a grind, then they can play the game how they want. They can make the best builds that they want, do the hardest challenges like solo dungeons and 3-man raids with their OP loot. But the system should not be like this. Doing the hardest content in the game should reward the best loot. I recently started a bit of a trend on Twitter when I showed my playtime for D2 over the years, and then a ton of people started showing theirs. And some people commented how crazy it was that we're only halfway through the Edge of Fate expansion, and they already have more hours in the game than they did in, say, Episode Heresy. And some people see that as the game being better. However, that is just not true. All it means is that the manipulative tactics that Bungie have used are working. They designed the game in a way to be grinded endlessly so that people can finally achieve the desired loot that they want. They could have easily made a system where doing hard content also rewards tier 5s. They have this whole new modifier system in the game where if you did the hardest modifiers, it could reward the best loot. It is now well over a month since the newest raid came out, and people still cannot earn tier 5 gear from the raid. So by all accounts, most people aren't even bothering with playing the raid, despite it probably being the only good content that they released this expansion. Even people doing 5 feet runs with all these difficult modifiers are only getting tier 4s at best. And when the epic raid comes out, it is not even guaranteed tier 5 loot drops, it's just a chance at tier 5s. Yet, if you're 450 light, you can get like 4 tier 5 drops just from a random Crucible game. Dude, make it make sense. They don't care if you're enjoying yourself, they just care that you're playing, as Chibi Robo so eloquently stated in a video on the topic.
They would just dodge the question, because the reason why they do it is, bottom line, player engagement. They're not going to say that, though. They're not going to be like, we just care about you playing our game. So whatever that makes you play the game but makes you frustrated, we don't care if the emotion part. As long as you're physically in the game, we don't care. Yikes. Like, I can deal with the Eververse store, I could deal with it updating all the time, but making horrible choices for the playing part? Yeah, no, I'm not on board with that.
Oh, and to further back up this claim, I brought some receipts. Every single D2 player on Twitter who hits 450 power is just relieved that the grind is over. No one is saying how fun that grind is. They are just like, well, I wish I never did that and I wouldn't want to inflict that kind of torture on my worst enemy. Does this sound like the kind of thing that people would say if they were enjoying your video game? Fuck no. Many people grinded the shit out of Onslaught last April for 2 reasons. Because it was a fun as hell activity, and it was rewarding, and it gave good loot. So what is incentivizing people playing now? Because they want the best rewards. And Bungie has deliberately made a grindy system to suck up as much playtime as possible. And sure, maybe this is good for the short term, but long term, it's just going to drive more and more players away.
But it doesn't make it good. I don't care if you like this or not, it doesn't make it good. It's not going to be healthy for the game in the long run. Player count will go down because player fatigue. That's literally, it's just going to lead to that. I don't mind having a long grind. I don't. But if I don't feel like I'm getting rewarded enough, or if I'm not having fun enough, no thanks. The reason why I was playing so much of Solstice specifically was because it was more rewarding. And I was getting tier 5s like a lot. Like it felt nice. I'm like, oh, if events are more like this is great. Now, if only the rest of the game would be like that. I mean, even if they have something each week on rotation to like give you tons and tons of loot, that'd be great. Like just some kind of boost. But not only like just how long the power grind is, it just makes 0 sense to time gate it. Like whether you're somebody that likes the grind or not, it makes 0 sense for us to be able to go to 550, like, but it's not at launch. Why? And it's crazy to me that they consider 450 the pinnacle cap when it's not, when Ash and Iron comes out. Like, if you're gonna make this grind like super long, then have it be the axe, you know, right at launch and not time gate that. It just, what?
Look at my playtime. I quit the fucking game because of how poorly Bungie has handled D2, and I was as diehard as it gets. And one quick look at the Steam chart shows it's not going so well these days. Sure, the people who are actually around may be playing more than they used to, but they're just addicts at this point. I'm not sure what Bungie would have to do to make them stop. But for the people who don't put up with that kind of shit, they're just moving on. And with Borderlands 4 and Destiny Rising and other big titles right around the corner, it's only going to get worse for Bungie. The day I'm making this video, I ran on my treadmill for 2 hours and 20 minutes just watching YouTube, most of them being D2 videos talking about the horrible TWID last week. Bungie did reply to the shitstorm in a tweet this week, and I found one thing they wrote rather interesting. To be clear, we believe these changes were the wrong call. I'm sure most of you know the backstory, but if you're unfamiliar, they're referring to the fact that they were going to nerf how rewarding solo ops were, when the entire community is crying out for them to just buff up the other playlists to be on the solo ops level. And in the TWID, they say that they plan on doing that, buffing the other playlists. And I've seen some other talking points about what they're bringing back to the game, and it's all the most grindy missions possible. Liminality, one of the longest strikes in D2. The expeditions from Season of the Plunder, some of the worst activities that they've ever made. No one likes those missions, but Bungie brings them back because they can't be rushed through. They have time gates like securing the payload. Hell, even in the background gameplay from the videos I watched about how shit Bungie's TWID was, you can see that they all have boss health gates and arbitrary requirements to kill enemies in certain ways, purely put in there to slow players down. But in the TWID this week, which references the awful one last week, is just pure damage control from a self-inflicted wound. They haven't actually improved anything yet, they just walked back a terrible proposal. If someone told you they were going to punch you in the face and then they decided not to, would you thank them? Well, sadly, a ton of Bungie bootlickers were all saying what a huge W them walking back a terrible change was. That's not a W. Bungie constantly does this. They propose a horrific change, people freak out, they relent a little bit and make a still awful change, but it's less bad by comparison, so then people suddenly think it's good. It's honestly a textbook case of the cycle of abuse. They always say, we're listening, and that they will make things better. The community believes them, time goes on and barely anything tangibly improves. Then they do something awful again, the community is in an uproar. Then they relent a little bit, say they'll be better and that they're listening, and then right back to making anti-player changes. It's honestly sickening. And that is why they have an identity crisis, because they used to be making a game they care about and that had cohesive elements to it. Like I said, the light level actually made sense in D1 and early D2, but as time has gone on, they don't design the game around fun anymore. They design it around retention. So even though playtime may be at record highs, I don't know, community sentiment and enjoyment are clearly at record lows. I love Fallout Plays, he is very fair with his criticisms of Bungie, and he has a great video about the recent TWID as well. And he singles out a response from Bungie about the solo ops playlist being a quote, problem child. What exactly is the problem there, Bungie? People are hitting high light level faster than you like? Why is that a problem? Is it because then they move on from the game and not stay on your fucking treadmill? So, to go back to that note in the TWID about, to be clear, we believe these changes were the wrong call. No, they don't. They don't fucking believe that. How do I know? Because they never would have proposed those changes in the first place. If they truly believed that those changes were bad for the game, it would have never made it to the point where that idea was made public. It would have been scrapped on the drawing board in some office somewhere. But it did make it to the public, because some decision maker somewhere at Bungie does believe that solo ops is too rewarding. And why do they think this? Graphs, of course. They don't design their game on feel and fun factor anymore. It's all about graphs and data. And in an industry as artistic and human as video games, this is the completely wrong way to go about things. There's a great quote from Benjamin Disraeli that was popularized by Mark Twain. There are 3 kinds of lies. Lies, damned lies, and statistics. And basically what that means is that statistics can honestly be used to prove or disprove anything that you want. You can interpret them in any way to support your argument.
Is somewhat nice. Like, it's nice to know that they realize that not every strike is balanced the same way. So every time I get to the end of Inverted Spire, we lost our time bonus every time. But the reward scaling, it just doesn't seem like a large enough buff for me to want to go out and go do like Onslaught, which I wish I could do. I wish that I could just be like, I want to do something else, and I have all these options. Like, that should be it. And it shouldn't be like, oh, well, if I do this, I'm adding more time to when I will finally get to the max power or pinnacle cap or anything like that. It shouldn't be like that. So that's why you buff all these other options while keeping everything the same in the previous. So then if people do want to just keep doing solo ops and losing their mind in Caldera, go ahead, go into the mines of Caldera. Like, that should be your choice. But for those who want a different experience, but still getting a lot of rewards to where, like, maybe it's, to be honest, way better than solo ops, because you could fall asleep in solo ops and you don't really have to do much. But some of these other activities, you do have to do a little bit more. Like, the problem that Bungie has always had is the reward and difficulty and whatever time investment scale is always messed up. Like, if we're gonna show graphs, I have this issue where I actually physically sigh and roll my eyes as soon as I see a graph in Twid, in any Twid. Like I will just always physically sigh and roll my eyes, because I'm like, oh, here's the ego flexing of the devs to tell us why this is a decision that we're making. Like, they would use that all the time for like skill based and such, and player engagement of things. That was one of the reasons back in D1 to nerf snipers specifically, when it was because, or no, it was one specific sniper, and it's because they were like, oh, it's the most OP sniper, when in reality it was the only sniper of its archetype that was the best for PvP. That's why everyone was using it. If there was multiple of that same archetype, people would use that instead. Like, I always go back to when that was like where I'm like, I don't like graphs. And so I don't know what made this decision other than its leadership, because when I saw the silence about the power progression for as long as they did, and people were exploding like over the 400 to 450 when they finally got there, and I was like, man, I feel like the reason why Bungie's taking so long to talk about it is it's because they want it like this. They don't care about your player experience. They just care that number go high on player engagement, even if it's something bad that will lead to players to be done in the future. Like, I mean, it's also crazy that their new activity in Caldera doesn't even drop powerfuls. I went in there thinking I'm gonna get a ton of powerfuls because it's on a cooldown. Like, you have to wait like 2 hours or something like that each.
So Bungie likes to use these charts and graphs to make decisions about their game. Oh, too many people are doing solo ops, we must nerf it, rather than looking into the root cause. And to be clear, basically all giant corporations are fucking clueless and make decisions based on data, and they just put a band-aid on the solution instead of getting to the root cause of the issue. I could make a whole nother video on that topic alone, but the point is, Bungie is data driven, so they want to nerf solo ops instead of asking why so many players are opting to live in the solo ops mines. And the answer is they want to earn the good loot. If the best loot in the game only came from the Desert Perpetual raid, like it did in D1 with Vault of Glass, then a lot more people would probably be in the Desert Perpetual raid. Or if Onslaught was super rewarding, then they would be doing that. Not because it's the most fun activity, but because people want their time respected. So they will just naturally gravitate to the most rewarding activities. The solution to this is to make more things in the game nearly as rewarding as solo ops. Or, as many have asked for, to incentivize jumping from activity to activity. Give bonus loot to random activities. This will drive up engagement.
The thing that bothers me the most about Bungie when it comes to game balancing is the way they handle it. What they mentioned in their twab yesterday, without this sounding too harsh, is beyond stupid. Some W's, don't get me wrong, but way too many L's. I'm going to point this out and you can agree or disagree, but when they spoke about solo ops, their so-called solution to the problem of people farming solo ops instead of fireteam and pinnacle ops was to reduce the power earned for a given grade in solo ops by 1 versus fireteam and pinnacle ops. This is the most dumbest thing I've ever seen in video games. It's exactly like strong builds being nerfed to the ground. They honestly just don't know how to balance things after 10 years, it's kind of insane. Instead of doing what other games do and buff the weaker things, they nerf the only most efficient things instead. They are basically nerfing fun and forcing players to play what they want you to play. Use the gear that they want you to use, rather than just buffing the weaker things. Players always go for whatever is the fastest and best method for farming. Encore was fast, so people farmed that, then they purposely made it slower, to the point that you were better off just farming solo ops, Caldera or K1. Both were still solid choices, but most went to Encore. Then they nerfed that and took it out of the game, so people went to solo ops. But with this being nerfed, maybe you will be better off in fireteam ops for probably one out of all of them. Nerfing doesn't fix the problem. It just forces the player who wants to be efficient to move on to the next best thing. Just buff the weak stuff and stop heavily nerfing things that aren't even that bad.
Live stream and talk about this because they thought it was super fun, and naturally, of course, players are going to get excited that they can now grapple like Spider-Man. So, this grappler modifier gave you 3 non-offensive grapple grenades that you could use to speed up your runs. It was extremely fun, and it fulfilled the fantasy that players have had since Lightfall released years ago, to be able to feel like Spider-Man. Pretty much everyone loved this modifier, it was great. But how did Bungie respond to this happy feedback? They took it out of the game. 2 days after the Edge of Fate launched and 2 days after people started making videos about how optimal and fun it felt to get loot showers in these missions, they axed it. And need I remind you, this is after they just had a small section in the stream titled Player Agency.
Another fucked up thing that Bungie did is actually made it so you could run only one conquest per season, per account. So not one run on all 3 characters, once per account. One run in the entire season. Yes, they are also walking this back, but why did Bungie do this? Probably because it was too damn rewarding. Bungie, reward your damn players. Stop being so stingy.
So, naturally, when Bungie announced that they were removing Grandmaster Nightfalls, I was pretty bent out of shape. But then they said they were doing the Conquest system, and I had a little bit of hope. Well, flash forward to the beginning of Edge of Fate, players discovered that Conquests you could only complete one time a season. Not once per week, not once per character per season, one time per account per season, which I don't understand. For the players who are crazy enough to hit 450, everything that they do, they are showered with tier 5 loot. It is everywhere. So I don't understand what the problem would be for replaying conquests and getting high tier loot drops, even if you could only do one of them a week per conquest. Thankfully, in this TWID, they did mention they're looking to make conquests farmable, but that doesn't get rid of my biggest pain point, and that is the avantgarde modifier. If you are unaware of what the avantgarde modifier is, it states that you can only launch the activity and play it with new or featured gear. Now, obviously, new gear is the gear that released alongside of Edge of Fate. You can't use your old armor with your old rolls. You need to use things that you've acquired in Edge of Fate with the new blue tag by the seasonal icon. Now, for the featured gear portion of it, that mostly correlates to exotics. There are featured exotics, a handful of them per class with some weapons that were handpicked by Bungie to be those featured weapons. Those are the only exotics that can be used under this modifier's guidelines. So if I wanted to make videos on Grandmaster Conquests, whatever conquests might be in the rotation, I cannot use the builds that I want to use. The modifier completely sandbags any sort of build crafting unless you are using the featured exotics. Now this is where I start getting upset with Bungie, the company that constantly says we are listening. Nobody is a fan of the avant-garde modifier. It's not fun, it's not challenging, it just sandbags your build craft potential. And now in this TWID, they announced that they're doubling down on the avant-garde modifier and turning it into a new pseudo modifier that you can put on other portal activities. Now, you can choose to simply not play without this pseudo modifier, as it's going to be an optional thing in portal activities. However, we don't know how much of a score benefit it's going to give you and if it's going to be necessary. I imagine it won't be that big of a deal, but it's the sole prospect that they want to double down on the modifier that nobody enjoys. All things considered, I'm sure there's more to talk about and be upset about, but that's just kind of the main pain points I had with the TWID, and a lot of people, like I said, are not happy with this one.
Anyways, I honestly think that's going to do it for the video. I just wanted to cite some examples about how fucking convoluted and unfun Bungie's systems are because they don't have a clear identity anymore. They want to design as big a time sink as possible, but when people flip out that it's boring and monotonous, they have to bend the knee a little bit to act like they care. I see all these videos and tweets and posts and this and that about how unhappy people are, and I just wanted to highlight the issues. But truth be told, about halfway through this script, I just lost interest in my talking points. I think my dunking on Bungie days may soon be behind me. I just don't care that much anymore. It is simultaneously funny yet sad to read about, like how they're neglecting PvP so egregiously, and I'm honestly just shocked that people still play D2 PvP in late 2025. I honestly feel for them, I really do. But yeah, I've always said that I will make content that I want to make, and now I barely even care to dunk on Bungie anymore. Before it was cathartic and therapeutic, but now I'm approaching apathy. I just don't care like I used to. I've been streaming Hollow Knight all week on Twitch at itstizzle7 and having an absolute blast doing that, and shout out to all my chatters, you guys have helped me a ton in that game. But I took the day off to catch up on IRL stuff and make this video, but honestly, I'd rather just be playing Hollow Knight. I have the script written now, so I may as well post a video, but we'll see how much editing I do. Like I said, I just don't give a shit anymore. Bungie's a pathetic company, and their downfall will be 100% deserved and justified because they stopped putting their players first. For anyone else still playing it, I promise you there are way better games out there that respect your time and enjoyment far more. Go play those. Bungie does not deserve its amazing community. You all deserve better. I know it's a comfort game and that you have thousands of hours sunk into it. You have countless friends who play it. Trust me, I do too, but it just is not worth it, believe me. Anyways, that's it. I don't have the drive to keep doing this. I'm having much more fun making content that I actually care about on my second channel. I have a couple more Destiny videos planned for this channel, and then who knows, maybe I'll just totally be done covering Destiny. I already don't play it, and now I don't even really like making videos on it. Anyways, catch you in the next one. Take care.